Good, good afternoon, everybody. This is your favorite Yugoslav American Grouch, Seattle chapter president, broadcasting to you on Super Bowl. Super Bowl Sunday. And I wanted to help you to an idea I have. It could be really fun. But first, how I came upon it. Well, first, land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. And I'd also like to do a shout out to the Coastal Salish, because I saw that somebody somewhere else in Seattle acknowledges the Coastal Salish, and I certainly would like to do that as well. I'll try and find a land acknowledgement with them. Unfortunately, then my videos will just be land acknowledgements. No, joking. It's necessary. It's part of repair with the native people around my area that I'm doing this. Anyway, because it's necessary to do. So first I want to tell you, it's been a hot minute since I've chatted with you all, and I wanted to tell you about what I've been up to. Not much, really. I mean, nothing really changes, and yet everything changes. But recently, I started taking a course online through the Theosophical Society, if you know who they are, about the history of parapsychology, which is sort of history of extra scientific events, sort of, so whatever, UFOs, ghosts, telepathy, that's good. 3 is enough for examples. And so what this is it's a discussion of the history of the research into this. So it's a history lecture, and the topic is the research of this of these events, right? And one of the things the lecturer is named Mitch Horowitz, and he's excellent. The lectures are packed full of information. I mean, this guy does not hold back. So you have to really, if you don't know anything about it like me, you have to really stay focused on what he's saying just to even get a little bit out of it. Luckily, if anything strikes my fancy, I can go back and rewatch it. Having paid for the class, I have 2 weeks until 2 weeks after the last class, which is the last Wednesday in February, to rewatch everything if I want. But so far, what I've been thankful for is being new to the topic, just grabbing 1 or 2 things that caught my eye or caught my attention, and sort of sitting with those a little bit. And one of those things is this thing called the Global Consciousness Project. And he only touched upon it briefly last Wednesday, but he's going to do a whole lecture on it in not this week, but the following week. So I'm looking forward to that discussion a little bit more. But what I'll do is I will, and I think they're still taking registration for the class if you're interested in it. But be prepared to really have to focus, and it's because it's very intellectually dense material that he's bringing to the table. So you have to be ready for that, to really focus. it's through the Theosophical Society of America. I think it's like theosophicalsociety.org or something like that. You can just go check it out if you want to register for the next two, and you'll get the videos for the first two, so it'll be like you know, taking the class. It's just you won't be there for the Q&A, right? Anyway, so do that for yourself if that's interesting. But I'll read to you a little bit what this global consciousness project is. It's also it's a parapsychology experiment begun in 1998 as an attempt to detect possible interactions of global consciousness with physical systems. The project monitors a geographically distributed network of hardware random number generators in a bid to identify anomalous outputs that correlate with widespread emotional responses to sets of world events or periods of focused attention by large numbers of people. And of course there are debunkers. But what these randomized number generators are is they're attached to a computer in Princeton, and the lab is called PEAR, Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab. So if you like pears, that's an easy way to remember that. In an extension of laboratory research utilizing the group events studied included psychotherapy sessions, theater presentations, religious rituals, sports competitions such as the World Cup, and televised broadcasts of the Academy Awards. And the thing is, it's found that during certain high emotional events in the world, that these number generators sync up, and they feed, and this is verified at the PEAR labs in Princeton, New Jersey, that receives all the number generations, right? And of course, the skeptics say, well, after the fact, you selected a period of time around a tragic event and saw something, right? So that's the criticism, right? And that's an easy criticism to make. I'm not sure, and people have made it to make it look like these guys aren't doing, their level best to make the science of this seem legitimate, right? So I thought, well, what if, okay, so they don't like that, say, after a 9/11 or a 2008, global financial crisis. I wonder what that looked like at the Princeton labs, What if there was an event planned ahead of time, and you could say, well, for this period of time, a couple minutes, get a majority of people in the world concentrating on this, are doing something or focused on something, then maybe that would show up at the Princeton labs. These random number generators will pick up on this and start synchronizing, and in Princeton labs, the PEAR labs will pick up on this, right? And I was like, okay, that to me sounds like a reasonable experiment. Of course, and I was like thinking, well, what kind of event could this be? And one of the things I noticed is that the events that they're talking about have a lot of emotion and a lot of negative emotion attached to them, so like, whether it's like, that earthquake in Japan, the tragedies and the anxiety over the nuclear reactors, the earthquakes in Haiti, um, you know, the World Cup, guys. I mean, for as much joy as people experience in the World Cup, there's also a lot of, you know, um, crestfallen people, who watch the World Cup. That's that's not a great thing to try out if you're just trying an experiment, right? You want something that's like light. And I was thinking, well, what's light? And I was like, love. And I know that sounds corny, but it's true. And well, gosh darn it, Valentine's Day is just around the corner. And so what I propose is that for 2 minutes on February 14th, we get anyone who's interested in the world to think about love. And so I've picked my 2 minutes. It's 1 p.m., 1:01 p.m. Pacific time to 1:03 p.m. Pacific time. And so that is Greenwich Mean Time. That's 21:01 Greenwich Mean Time to 21:03 Greenwich Mean Time. Okay, so if you're used to calculating your time zones from Greenwich Mean Time, you've got your information. And so I thought, if for 2 minutes we could all focus on love, and we know we're going to do this at this time, what will show up at the Princeton labs? And let's check it out, right? So I'll tell you how I'm going to think about this, because I witnessed sort of a small act of love once that's always really stuck with me. And if you need, if you need something like this, you're free to have this from me. But maybe you've witnessed something similar, and you could kind of meditate on this. I was in Mexico City in this beautiful cloister that had a coffee shop. So I was sitting at the coffee shop enjoying the fountain and the architecture and the coffee and just the atmosphere. And this older couple, kind of slowly walked together under the arches of the cloister and came to sit about a table or two over from me. And you could tell they really enjoyed each other's company, and they had an ease with their relationship. And it was a hot day in the city, and so I think they were wearing shorts and short sleeves. And they sat next to each other. It was a round table, but they sat next to each other, waiting, for their coffee to come. And she was kind of seated like this, with her arms on the table, just kind of, or maybe she was like, that doesn't matter. And I think maybe it was like this. And he reached out, and you know how on your arms the skin underneath is kind of soft? He reached out and touched just under her arm there and kind of gave it a gentle caress. Just that one moment. And I was like, oh my God, that's such a loving moment. And it was funny because a moment later, I sneezed. Maybe I was so overwhelmed by this gesture. And the woman turned around, she turned in her chair and she said, salud, right? So she wished me good health. And I wonder if maybe we didn't all have, maybe, their lovingness to each other washed over me, and then they shared it with me with this image, and then with her wishing me improved health. So maybe you have a similar thing you can meditate on, but that's what I think I'll be thinking about on Valentine's Day, February 14th, from 21:01 Greenwich Mean Time to 21:03 Greenwich Mean Time, or 1:01 to 1:03 Pacific Time for me. And you're going to say, well, you know, Miss Lily, what if I'm asleep? Well, how about you go to bed? Thinking of something lovely, and maybe so many people who are awake will be thinking of this that you'll get a really good dream. You know, a lot of things are possible with this. You could be in traffic and be really angry, but then you notice it's 101 is coming up, and not the 101, the time 101, and you be like, oh wait, I'm supposed to focus on something loving, and that'll calm you down, and you won't be so angry in traffic. There's a lot of ways this could work. So let's try it out. Let's try this experiment out. Death to fascism, freedom to the people, and I do love you.